Welcome, comic book fans. I'm Captain Cummings, host of the 10 Cent Story, the YouTube channel you're currently watching at this very moment. I'm excited to talk about comic book history. So let's get started. Let's talk about a little bit of modern history. Alterna Comics. This is a company that is owned and operated by Peter Siemti. This company is basically a vanity project, and it publishes newsprint style comic books. This company holds a very small portion of the comic book market, less than 1%. Now you might be asking, what is newsprint? And if you are, well, you must be young. But the thing to realize is the glossy pages that you have in periodicals and comic books today, you know, the stuff that makes you be able to do dynamic things with the art and coloring. Before we had that technology, they used newsprint. This was in the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and in the 90s. Well, Peter Siemti is publishing an inferior product with Alterna Comics. Honestly, I've never even seen an Alterna comic inside a comic book store, and I've traveled all over the country and the world. But just like the theme of this video, when you can't find evidence, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's very unfortunate. So recently we had a beef, Peter and I. This was in the month of May 2020. I questioned if Peter Siemti was really swatted in February 2019. There was no evidence on the police blotter, on the Facebook page of the police department, or on the news. These are all things that you would think would show up if this really happened to Peter. He said police pointed guns at his head. That's very unfortunate. He just released a video regarding this incident, and he was swatted. The most unfortunate thing about this whole ordeal is that the criminal was never found, and the statute of limitations is up on the crime. That means they basically got away with it. Now, Peter Siemti's fans did not like me looking into his swatting attempt. They didn't like it at all. They were using, unfortunately, this listen and believe mentality, and they were very persuaded by Peter's nice guy reputation. First off, they were accusing me of being the swatter. They said that calling his police department was harassment. And they claimed the police department wouldn't give me the paperwork. They would give me the F off routine. Lo and behold, they were very cooperative, and I have the paperwork right here, right now. All of this is false. I've noticed this about Peter ever since I came back to Twitter. He is very passive-aggressive to anybody that has any criticism towards him. And he will try to roast you and use his 80,000 fans to harass you. So it became this tense situation where I needed to validate it. You know, I needed to find out the truth. And unfortunately, he was actually swatted. And I felt like I needed to do this video to really talk about some of the things that were very weird. So let's get right down to it. So on February 12th, 2019 at approximately 10 p.m., local police knocked on Peter Siemti's door responding to what we now know as a fraudulent domestic violence call. Somebody called as Peter Siemti and said that he stabbed his girlfriend. Now, the police had their service weapon drawn while responding to this call and at the ready position. This is all verified in the reports. Now, I'm not going to get all hung up on whether they pointed the guns at his head or even at all. That's not verified. It must have been a very traumatic experience to open the door and see police officers with their weapons drawn, and they were wanting to talk to you. Realize I personally didn't find out that this had happened to Peter until his update video on February 15th, just a few days later. I vividly remember lying in bed with my cell phone watching this video with great concern. This was a very big deal at the time. As you can see right here, my comment reads, Wowz, 1 year ago. Hopefully you find out who did this and they are punished under the law. My thoughts on the first time watching the video was, this is horrible. Hopefully the police find that person. And then I just sort of moved on. Of course, I still feel the same way today as well. Even though this criminal, and I say that sincerely, this person is a dangerous criminal in my opinion. They can't be charged because the statute of limitations is passed, and this case has been closed because of that. The general public knowing who this is and distancing themselves from them, not associating, is a very good thing. So I kind of have an added takeaway from this video statement today. I've watched it a couple other times, and I really just have confusion. The first time I watched it, it was sort of like an anecdote and I moved on. But today I'm left with questions. So Peter Siemti in this video states, I want to talk about what happened.
I want to discuss a little bit about what had occurred on the night of February 12th during Alterna Comics Live.
And later says, I'm not at liberty to discuss the open case. He's cooperating with police. This is all things that he stated in that video.
Because it's an ongoing investigation, I'm not at liberty to discuss anything more than that or say anything more than that.
This leaves me wondering, why did Peter do a video regarding a topic that he can't discuss? Why does Peter Siemti make a statement about something he can't talk about? Why did Peter Siemti not just stay quiet? This also makes me wonder, did Peter Siemti hire a lawyer after this happened? Did Peter Siemti get a lawyer before he talked to police? And I need to stop right here and tell everyone listening right now, never talk to police without legal representation, especially in a situation like this. The police won't tell you that you're a suspect. They will just gather as much information on you and then build a case against you. Don't be stupid. Now realize at the 6-minute mark, he is even asking for help on this case that he quote unquote can't discuss. Now he talks about the case a lot, but how is anyone going to honestly help? They have no idea. He doesn't give them any information on how to help. It's ridiculous. I didn't know at the time. I found this out after I started investigating everything. But Ethan Van Sciver published a video on February 13th. This was the day after Peter Siemti was swatted. I'm not sure if it was published in the morning, in the evening. But in this video, he heavily implies that cosplayer Renfamous is who swatted Peter Siemti. There's no evidence that this occurred. Getting in arguments on Twitter does not mean that you committed a crime.
None of this is funny. Anti-Comicsgate harassers, even now, are getting support from mainstream comic figures. Whoever swatted Peter Siemti, that was attempted murder. Cooler heads need to prevail. Now.
Now, when Peter Siemti was confronted over Ethan Van Sciver's rhetoric, because Renfamous was getting lots of harassment and even death threats over this, Peter Siemti basically agreed. Here is the tweet. Illegal Alien asks, so where do you consider Ethan Van Sciver trying to blame Renfamous for swatting you suspicious? When you ask not to accuse anyone. I'm dealing with a real and unknown threat of the life of me and my family, to the point that an investigation has opened up and you want to point the finger and wag at Ethan for you because he rightfully pointed out that consistently spreading serious and false accusations is dangerous? That's the weirdest run-on sentence I've ever known. But yeah, very passive-aggressive, very Peter Siemti-like. So this is getting a little ahead of myself on the timeline, but it's relevant to the topic. So on May 20th, I said Peter Siemti blamed a woman that received death threats. I'd say that's a good enough reason to look into something. And it is. Peter Siemti responds, which woman did I blame? Show the proof as well if you want to start making accusations. I really hate when people do this. They're lying, but they're trying to play this game of, if you can't prove it, then it's not true. Dumb. We just read the evidence, and you know what? I just read the evidence on here. Peter Siemti blamed Renfamous without any evidence. And let me tell you, arguing on Twitter is not evidence that somebody committed a crime. That's not good enough. Let me ask you this. Was Peter Siemti stupid enough to listen to Ethan Van Sciver? Did he talk to him off camera? Did he watch his stupid video? Let me ask you this. Did Peter Siemti tell Ethan Van Sciver to make that video? This is why you hire legal representation. I thought of Peter Siemti as a nice guy until he started railing against the industry during the lockdown. This was about mid-March, and Diamond had just shut down and was not shipping comics anymore. I had just returned to Twitter myself. I came across a few tweets here that I want to talk about where he's railing against Marvel and DC Comics. He felt that Marvel and DC should be doing something. Instead of himself doing something, he was looking at others. Donny Cates. He told a Marvel employee, "You're not Stan Lee," because apparently a Marvel employee can't use Stan Lee's taglines. Think about that for a second. The second one here with DC Comics. I liked it better the first time around when it was called Marvel Zombies, but besides that, I want to know what he's quote tweeting DC Comics, but he also tags them in the tweet. I think they got it. Think about what's going on with the comic industry right now, particularly in regards to offering any kind of relief or help for the comic shops. Why did Peter Siemti go after DC Comics and Donny Cates? Remember, these are the two people, Jim Lee, Donny Cates. They had charity events that gathered thousands upon thousands of dollars that helped comic book shops. They orchestrated all this. Jim Lee's pictures alone, he drew one a month and then auctioned them off, donated all the money to comic book shops. Tons of cash. What did Peter Siemti do? He complained. Remember, be the change you want to be. Don't go after what other people do. The point here is Peter Siemti is supposedly a professional. He is known as a nice guy. When the roles are reversed, Peter Siemti will always retweet and send his Twitter followers after you. Why doesn't this nice guy just ignore people instead of being a passive-aggressive baby? Now, it was at this point that I unfollowed Peter after realizing his nice guy routine was a complete facade the entire time. This actually, this explains the actual reason why I don't like Peter Siemti. Some people will try and say that I don't like Peter Siemti because he is friends with Ethan Van Sciver. I don't care about their friendship. I care about the person. That's it. Now, if you remember from earlier in the video, there was zero verifiable evidence that this swatting attempt actually happened. You had no calls of this nature on the police blotter for that day, none on the Facebook page for the police department, and there was no details of a swatting on the news. The size of the town that Peter lives in, it's very small. And I can relate to this because we had somebody driving at 100 miles an hour the other day. That made the news. When the police pulled him over, took him to jail, made the news. This would have been big news in Peter's town. Realize we did have some evidence, but it was very unreliable. Public witnesses. People that watched the stream. Now, I talked to a bunch of people, and you have to realize none of them could relay the information correctly of what happened. They either forgot and filled it in their head, or they were lying. You had Peter's word. He tweeted that police pulled guns and pointed them at his head. And then you had Dave, the man that was streaming with him. Now, realize he couldn't see what was going on, but his account was Peter got up, Peter went to the door, let the police in, and they talked quietly. You take those two testimonies, gun to the head, talking quietly, and the feelings from reading them are kind of contradictory. It's kind of odd. This tells you why witness testimony is very unreliable. There's various reasons, but I'm not going to get into it right now. Now realize Peter made this video private, so you couldn't verify anything. And for whatever reason, he took a month to make this video, basically because I pressured him to do it. Why? Because of the way he acted. It was odd behavior. He was very defensive about me calling his police department. He called it stalking and harassment. It's neither of those. It's basic journalistic functions. This reminds me of Dr. Christine Ford. If you remember this from a few years ago, she couldn't give any reliable information about her incident with Brett Kavanaugh. Peter had verifiable evidence available, but was not going to prove it. People that believed Peter are the same type of listen and believe people. Now, this was really weird. He had his police department call me to relay a message, and they basically said Peter didn't want me contacting him anymore, which I complied with, right up until he started passive-aggressively quote tweeting me again. And here's the tweet right here. This town is where Alterna P.O. Box is located. My P.O. Box didn't get swatted. I did. It's beyond sad that Cummings is pursuing this and wasting the time and resources of local law enforcement. Even after my actual local police department got in touch with him about the matter. There is many things wrong with this tweet. A, he didn't want me to contact him anymore, yet he is contacting me. B, he told me to look into this. C, there was many people playing this, sad play that the police departments were going to tell me to F off. I was simply tweeting this to show that that's not the case. Police departments are public entities. That means a lot of the stuff that they deal with is public information. Public. I don't understand why in the beginning when he said, go look into it, later he's saying, why are you doing this? You egged me on. Why would you do that if you didn't want me looking into this? So you just saw this from Peter, but many of his followers and actually a few big YouTubers were making the same silly assertion. Captain Cummings was told by the police to leave Peter alone. And he is still pursuing the documents. He is harassing. He's a harasser. There's two things here. Realize the police were relaying a message. They were not giving orders. I wish I had this conversation recorded, but I don't. When I started inquiring what this meant, what type of like authority this had, she said, I don't care about your two's Twitter beef. That basically told me everything. Nobody cares. The police told me that Peter didn't want me contacting him. This is the second thing. People were trying to act like me talking to his police department or even speaking about Peter publicly was breaking this. It doesn't. It's not harassment. The same people that consider this harassment must be SJW soy boys. Come on, people. This is all very silly. Don't talk about things that you don't know anything about, unless you're going to pursue the truth. So I know this is a long video. I have one last detail to talk about. Peter Siemti received the documents of this case 2 weeks before I did, and he made a video. In that video, he showed the same disc that I have, and it contains the 911 swatting call. He didn't upload this to YouTube. Why not? I feel like he wanted this sort of ambiguity that I was the swatter. He asserted this. Many other people asserted this. I don't like it. Peter Siemti acted more dramatic with me calling his police department than when he was actually swatted. He made his Twitter account private at one point, acting like his life was in danger. Now realize this was during the lockdown, and I live roughly 3,000 miles away from Peter Siemti. It's kind of silly. This also contradicts his social media policy that he has with all Alterna Comics creators. He doesn't want them to use block bots. So he doesn't want people mass blocking people, yet he blocked everyone on Twitter, which is what privating your account does. Seems pretty hypocritical to me. So to go back again, why does it appear that Peter Siemti is more afraid of me than the person that swatted him? Why did he not upload the 911 call so that somebody on the internet might be able to identify the caller? Then we would know. We would not associate with that person anymore. I would assume Peter Siemti doesn't want anyone to find the person that swatted him. So, if this is true, why? Why doesn't Peter want anyone to know who did this? You'll have to ask him. Now, I'm obviously going to upload the call on this video, and this is because Peter Siemti has accused a lot of people of this crime, me being one of those. The only thing I've altered out is Peter Siemti's address, and you will easily be able to verify where that is. So, without further ado, here you go.
New Marketplace. I stabbed my girlfriend.
Hello?
Hello?
Hey, what's going on?
I stabbed my girlfriend.
What do you mean?
I stabbed and killed her.
What? Yeah, what's the address?
Yeah.
What's your name? What's your name?
Peter.
What's your last name, Peter?
S-I-M-E-T-I.
S-I-E-T-I?
Yeah,
Are you still
I
there?
think I'm gonna kill myself. Yeah, I'm still here.
Hang on a second. Guy's just saying he stabbed and killed his girlfriend. Are you still there, Peter?
The knife's got blood everywhere.
Are you still last
I
night?
don't understand myself. Yes, I am.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
still have the knife in my hand.
Okay, go ahead and put the knife down, Peter.
No, I'm not putting it down. Oh, God.
Peter? Peter, you still there?
1330 Bennett Way. Caller advising he's got his girlfriend.
Peter?
10-5, the other units. I am way out of the area.
10-5, they're in there.
Hey, Peter, you still there? Peter? That line's dead. Yeah. Hey, Peter? Peter? Yeah.